Last week, I took a classic album, the album Argus by Wishbone Ash, and I spent a few days with it, and I found it wanting, to be honest. And I am being honest. I came on here to express my thoughts on it, the fact that I didn't understand why it was such a classic, although I had some ideas. And that video did so much better than I thought. Now, why did it do well? Because I suppose people like to be wound up by someone having an opinion different to theirs, and you know, they seem to engage, probably not in a positive way, and maybe I'm not being that positive, but I think the idea that we can not like stuff is important in today's social climate. I think people coming on and going, I don't like this, and this is why I don't like it. I'm not going, it's just my opinion, but you know, I'm not going to do that. I don't like it, and in my world, it's rubbish. In my world, Argus by Wishbone Ash is now in the part of my world where it has been classified as rubbish, and I won't listen to that album again. In some years, I might become, you know, if I've got enough of those years left, I might actually put it on in, say, 5 or 10 years, just to see if I still think it's rubbish, but I'll only be doing it because of that. Now, we know the people I don't like on this channel, right? Wishbone Ash was never on the list. It's obviously Van Morrison I don't like. Bruce Springsteen I don't like much. Neil Young I don't like much. Don't like Neil Young. I've had a go at him many a time. And so there I was going through for the 100th time the Rolling Stones 500 greatest albums of all time. I continually go back to this, and it annoys me. It annoys me that they can make a statement like that and get paid for it, that they go, this is the 12th greatest album. Out of all the billions of albums that have been made, the Rolling Stones are saying this album is the 12th greatest album. And I look at it and go, that's not that bloody good. It's not that good. Now, to be honest, I was having a look at that list, and at number 5 or 6, really high up on the list, was Nevermind by Nirvana. And I thought to myself, Nevermind cannot be that good. So I put the headphones on and I listened to it. And I got about 6 songs in, and I thought, bloody hell, it is. It's bloody amazing, right? It is. There was me doing the opposite of my Argus video, where here I am trying to listen to it going, yeah, all the good tracks are good on it, but the other tracks are filler. No, they're not filler, they're all equally amazing. It's just an amazing album. So I start going through the list, as I do, looking at well, they got 2 Beyonce albums on. Really? Lemonade is like the 20th album, you know, I don't know. And I'm considering which one to listen to really analyse. Now I get to number 72. Now I know 72 is lower down on the list, but it's still pretty high to be in the top 72 albums. Imagine, there's just 72 albums there, and they're the best albums. All the other albums that aren't on that list are now not as good. And sat at number 72 was Harvest by Neil Young, who I can't stick. So I thought, I'm going to have a go at Harvest, you know, because Neil Young's bloody rubbish, isn't he? So let's have a go at Harvest, because it's seen as a classic album. They put it high in, it's in the top 100 greatest albums of all time. So I put the headphones on and I listened to it, but unlike the Argus album, because I did take some of the criticism where I was just reacting in quite a vague way. I'd listened to it in the car. I hadn't really sat down and made notes about the specific things that made me hate it. I have now, and if you want to, I can come back. You know, I can do that if you want and show you the specific things that made me hate it. But I thought I'll do it this time, and I've made some notes for each track. So what you're going to have now is my objective opinion about Neil Young and his bloody dodgy Harvest album that everyone thinks is one of the greatest albums ever made. Shall we get into this now? Yes, it's going to be another one of those. So, this album opens up with a tune called Out on the Weekend. It starts up, it's mid-tempo, you know, it's not like an album opener I'd want, which is really gets you going. It's sort of idles in mid-tempo, is sort of, you know, and I'm like, well, is this where we're starting? Is it going to be one of those Neil Young albums that is now going to go downhill from here? But it's a very pleasant little tune. It's not like got the horrible growling nastiness of a Van Morrison album. It's quite pleasant, and I had to be honest, I thought the production for 1971-72 was absolutely excellent. And the thing I was drawn to was the drumming on this album. I thought the drumming was great, and I couldn't work out why I thought the drumming was so great. We'll come to that in a minute. We've got the usual 3 chords chugging over. Now, I know some people seem to be able to put up with this, but when I hear hackneyed chord progression, a chord progression that everybody uses, a chord progression that I've heard over and over and over again, I find it tiresome. Now, you may say, yes, but what Neil Young's doing is writing songs full of all this illusions and all these these painting pictures and this is like poetry. And I go, he may well be, but unless he draws me into the music, I'd rather just read the poetry. Right? The music comes first to me. The music grabs me. I think this is true of everyone. And if the music doesn't grab me and pull me in, why should I be bothered about the lyrics? Right, so it would be like listening to a Bob Dylan album, you know. So we've got these 3 chords chugging over. And every now and then, these harmonica solos keep coming in. Now, if Stevie Wonder does a harmonica solo, I'm fine with that, because his solos are great. But the idea that you're just going to find this diatonic key that these 3 chords are in, and then stick that mouth organ in front of you, and then just breathe out like an asthmatic having a panic attack, you're just hitting the sort of clusters of notes that anybody can do, and make that your solo, is tedious. So although it starts off being pleasant, it doesn't change, and it chugged on like this, becoming tedious and annoying. So I'm sat there going, I want this one to be over, and I want to press to the next track. I don't want this. It's not giving me any pleasure whatsoever. I want to press to the next track, but I know I've got to do the job. So I sit to the end. Right, so straight off, shite. Out on the Weekend, shite. This is supposed to be one of the greatest albums ever made, and it opens up with a piece of shite like that. Couldn't believe it. Then we go to the title track, Harvest. It comes in 12/8 time, a nice swinginess. I thought, well, that's a change, isn't it? At least we're not getting the same bloody song again, which you often get with these sort of Americana songwriting stuff. Again, it's slow and tedious, but nice production. I'm liking the production on Harvest. This idea I'm having about the imagery in Neil Young's lyrics, thinking of the counter-argument that people are going to put to me when I criticise this album, I decide to try and focus past the banality of the music to the lyrics. And he's saying this, dream up, let me fill your cup with the promise of a man. Now, the other day I tried to watch the 1970s version of Star is Born, being a big fan of the 1952 one with Judy Garland and the one with Lady Gaga. I haven't watched the 1937 one, and I hadn't watched the Chris Christopherson, Barbra Streisand one, and I put it on the other day. But in Chris Christopherson's sort of alcoholic attempt to woo Barbra Streisand, he gets up and does a very 70s thing, which is to sing these sort of sexist sort of lyrics. Now, maybe old Neil Young's being ironic here, but I find the lyric, dream up, let me fill your cup with the promise of a man, I find that to be yak. So here I'm starting to go, when I do listen to the lyrics, it seems to be a bunch of sort of 1970s hippie, free sex, sexist mumbo jumbo that we're having to listen to. Is this really one of the greatest albums ever made? I know I'm going to come on here and say Harvest, pile of dog shit, don't like it, and then everyone's going to get steamed up, you know. And I think I'm onto a winner now. I'm thinking, yeah, this is great. I'm just going to sit through this, make the notes so I can really argue how bad it is. And then the next track comes on, which is called A Man Needs a Maid. Here we go, more sarcastic stuff. You know, a man needs a maid. You know, old Neil Young, he don't want to have a wife or girlfriend. He don't want any of that. He just wants someone to come round and bloody wash his pants, you know, and polish his harmonica for him. That's not a euphemism, by the way. You know, here we go. And everyone's going to think this is great imagery when it's just 70s sexism dressed up. And this little piano comes in with this tiny voice. And I hear a sus chord. And I'm like, hello? A sus chord? We haven't had one of those. That was in this sort of the desert of harmonic disinterest that we have on this album. A sus chord? Whoa! He pulled me in a little bit. Then suddenly, The London Symphony Orchestra joins in, and it is incredibly powerful stuff. To Live a Love bit is absolutely beautiful. I love Neil Young's sort of unoperatic voice within this orchestral setting, and once you get away from I would say the ineptitude is his harmonic knowledge and it's passed on to someone else. What's going on musically in this orchestral setting is absolutely fantastic. I really like this, and then the lyrics do come out and I find it very moving. I'm sat here going, who's done this arrangement? Apparently it's this guy Jack Nietzsche, who is also doing some lap steel guitar on here, who was an arranger for Phil Spector. My God, these guys were talented. And I went, well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is Neil Young's genius, but I do appreciate this song. But the genius here is this Jack Nietzsche. It's incredible. And I have to put, you know, that although the first two tracks I've given a 1 out of 3, because I'm marking each one out of 3. This one, I put 3 out of 3, and I thought, this is a great song, you know. But one great song does not make a great album, does it? Then we go into the song I already know, Heart of Gold, one of his big hit records. It comes in, and again, the drumming's fantastic, and I go, why do I love this drumming so much? Then I realise there's no hi-hats there. Neil Young had instructed the drummer to play just snare drum and bass drum, which he is playing with a really heavy groove, but there's no hi-hats. Now, this is very close to the way people program drums using a sampler or some sort of keyboard device, where someone will get the bass drum and they'll go, and there's no, you don't get that to the hi-hats all the way through. That's a very modern sound. And then the way this has been engineered, the drums here are fantastic. Now, Heart of Gold, it does up a little bit. It's got a great groove. The production is ahead of its time. And I thought obviously it's a great pop song. It's got a great hook. And I thought this is a good song. It's a catchy song that has really been rescued by great drumming. And I thought I like this song because I could listen to the drumming on it, and that pulls me in. Musically, there's something for me to get my ears on. So Heart of Gold, you know, if you put the headphones on and listen to it, it's absolutely great. I thought, I like that. I've got to be honest. Now we're 50-50. You know, we got 2 songs I didn't like and 2 songs I like. The next tune comes in. It's called Are You Ready for the Country? This has a strange roomy sound about it, which I quite like. You know, again, the drumming's great. We've got another hackneyed chord progression, and the whole tune suddenly becomes, you know, very quickly quite tedious. I've even written lumpen. Lumpen, I've described this one. And we have these endless lap steel guitar solos, which of course sounds like somebody torturing a cat. Now, I don't mind a little bit of cat torturing, but this is one of the faults of Americana. Everything in it sounds shit. You know, you got the wheezy harmonica, the cat's chorus that is the lap steel guitar, and then a banjo, which is not the most nice sounding of string instruments, you know, twanging away. Don't mind the banjo so much, but all of that together, you know, and it's like the only way that you could think this is worthy if you are some sort of poshy type that can't play, and you know, you're in Mumford & Sons or something like that. So I don't fall for this Americana nonsense. So again, this one, I thought, yeah, well, they've had 2 good songs. Now we have gone down to another bloody tedious, boring song, which had interesting, roomy sound on it. But, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it was a bit bloody tedious. Why does he keep going for this tedious thing? And I thought maybe the people who like this album like it. You know why? Because they're simpletons musically. That's what it is. I'm sat there thinking, they're simpletons, they can't take anything. And I want my ears to be focused on lush, beautiful, interesting, surprising music. I don't want to listen to tedium. But I remembered when I was a kid learning guitar, and I'd learn all these jazz chords and these riffs, and I could solo and do all these scales. But if I just finger picked, you know, very delicately around, you know, a C, A minor, F and G, my mum went, oh, that's ever so pretty. And I thought, no, Mum, this is the most simplest thing in the world. Why do you think this is good? It's because my mum, unlike my dad, did not have an ear for music. There's no 2 ways about it. That's why I've never really mentioned my mum as an influence of my taste on my music, unlike my dad. Yes, you could have better taste than someone else. And I believe that. So are you ready for the country? No, I'm not ready for the country. Not in any shape or form. Rubbish. That's the end of side one. In the old days, of course, I'm listening to this on Spotify. So imagine we had now turned the album over and we've had 3 crap tracks, 2 good tracks. It's not too bad, really. Then it opens up with a track called Old Man. It's got a great intro, lots of drama. I like the intro here. Again, you know, loads of great drumming. And this time we've got interesting rhythmical figures. Neil Young has got a bloody surprise up his sleeve, right? The production is very small. And this time, and I don't know why he doesn't do this on every song, because Neil Young can do it. He's created these beautiful, interesting vocal melodies. There's a banjo break that underpins the chorus with these harmony vocals coming in, and I absolutely love it. It's just brilliant. And I'm here thinking this is great songwriting, right? It's not profound as such, but it's pleasant and it's of interest. I'm not looking for Frank Zappa or the Mavish Orchestra when I listen to an album like this. At the moment, I am obsessed with Nick Drake, and I've listened to his albums over and over again. But there's a sophistication, and that sophistication goes beyond the limits of English folk music to something which is far more profound. I think this idea of us going back to a music form that we think is authentic actually is just going back to cliche. This hasn't got a cliche. So you could use the colours of Americana, but when you structure them in this sort of way, it's great. I love the vocals. It's like, you have to remember that Neil Young is now 80 years old, and we think of him as this old man growling away. But back then he's like 24, 25 years old, and he's talking to himself as an old man. Back in 1971, I was like 3 in 1971. A whole lifetime has existed. And so this song has become more profound as time has gone on. And the idea of creating a song which grows in its profoundness over time is a powerful thing, and you've got to give points to that. So Old Man, loved it. Then we go into There's a World. Again, this was recorded with the London Symphony Orchestra. He'd gone to the UK to film a concert for the BBC, and whilst he was there, he jumped in with the London Symphony Orchestra. Jack Neach obviously came up with these arrangements pretty quickly. This is proper musical genius coming on here. And again, like A Man Needs a Maid, I absolutely love this. Once Neil Young's songwriting is freed from the banality of sort of open chord chugging, he really becomes great. Beautiful harmonies, beautiful melodies. And with that, when I hear it, the lyrics start to come through. There's a world you're living in. No one else has your part. All God's children in the wind. Take it in and blow hard. That's profound, and it's positive, and it's beautiful. This is great stuff. So side 2, we've now got 2 great songs here. Then we go into a tune called Alabama. Now, one of the facts, I haven't got that many facts about Neil Young, but I know he did a song called Southern Man, where he criticised, you know, people in the South, because for all his sort of plaid shirts and his fake Americana, the bloke is Canadian. And I sometimes feel that there could be a sniffiness, but you know, towards the actual indigenous population down south. And Alabama is one of those tunes, I think. It starts off, the mix is incredible. I would say that the mix on this for 1971 is groundbreaking. This sounds unbelievable. It's like that room sound with distortion. It's exploring stuff that no one else would be really. It's like there's bits of trip hop, and then stuff like Talk's albums, you know, like Spirit of Eden. There's a whole, you know, Radiohead. There's a sound on here that is ahead of its time, but the tune itself is a little bit tedious, and I do get that sort of Canadian looking down, you know, sort of condescending tosh in the lyric, you know. There's a quite a good guitar solo. I know I've criticised Neil Young's, but there's quite a good guitar solo which is like compositional in its approach. I like the harmony vocals on this. They're a little bit wobbly in places, but they're very beautiful. So this one, I didn't like it that much, but I could see there were positive things about the tune Alabama. Then we go on to what I think is the most powerful tune on the album, which is called Needle and the Damage Done. This is very, very moving. It's acoustic guitar, vocal. It's incredibly simplistic for those people who think I can't deal with simplicity. And it deals with heroin addiction, really focusing on a musician called Danny Whitten, who was an associate of Neil Young, who would die later of an overdose that same year as the song was being released. That's powerful stuff. This is where Neil Young's ability as a songwriter to be able to stitch a song which is not subjective in its meaning, is absolutely objective. You know what it's about, and he comes in and punches you right. And this is brilliant songwriting from Mr. Young. So again, I thought that track was, I gave it 3 out of 3. Absolutely loved it. And then we're on to the last track, which is called Words Between the Lines of Age. We've got that roomy Alabama sound again. This riff comes in again, suddenly, like, which one was it? Old Man. We've got this interesting rhythms going on. Not all the time, but it shows that he can do it. And I'm sat there thinking, what? There's something weird about this riff. The riff is in 11/8. This has got to be Neil Young's most proggy moment. Then he drops into 4/4 with an almost like sort of modulated tempo shift. There's lots of interesting tempo shifts and timing shifts. This is quite proggy. And I felt this was a fitting end to the album. It was quite, what's the word? What do I put? I've said it settles into a jam and Neil does a guitar solo. It's uplifting yet dark. His guitar solo is obviously incompetent, but it's quite nice to feel someone expressing themselves in that way and not worrying about trying to be, you know, Dwayne Allman or whoever it is that he would probably rate as a great guitarist. His abstract twangs and prangs actually are quite refreshing. It goes on for a bit, but the earlier sort of complexity and rhythmical interest, I gave that one a 2 out of 3. So with a few revisions, when I added it all up, it actually came out that my score for this album was 8 out of 10. I wouldn't have, there was nothing I hated. It wasn't like Astral Weeks where I put a 0. All the songs were okay. There was no zeros here. When I really looked, it was actually 7.8. And I thought, on the whole, there is something I find quite tedious. So I knocked it down to 7. That was my sort of subjective approach to this. But I was trying to be quite scientific with this. 7 out of 10, for me, is not bad. That's a good album. If I owned Harvest, I would stick it in the car and I would enjoy it. Now, what's the other ones he's done? After the Gold Rushes, there's a few others that maybe I should dip into this Neil Young thing. Now, this does show up something that I'm not really... I'm being honest here. I wanted to show what one, you know, because I know I do clickbait stuff, and I know that I approach my channel with the idea that I'm creating entertainment. That's really what I do, and I'm trying to, you know, at least once a week put out a video that lots of people will like, where I come out and do this thing. And you might say, well, what's the point in that? Well, what I'm doing is I'm channeling my own prejudices as someone of my age who likes what I like and doesn't like what I don't like. And when I explore that, and I go into some of the reactionariness of myself, I think that's funny for people who see that in themselves and go, yeah, I'm a bit like that. And actually, when you sort of channel that aspect, you can actually come up with some real profound truths about that artist that can really deflate them greatly. What you've seen here was me being absolutely objective. And the things I don't like about this are what I associate with Neil Young, and so why he's on my list of what I don't like. So I can see that he is he's a great songwriter. He comes out of a scene in America which is like America's reaction to the Beatles, and it seesaws back and forth, you know, with bands like Byrds and Buffalo Springfield and all those bands. And those bands are trying to do what the Beatles are doing, but with the idea of American culture. It's trying to bring American culture back in. And leading from Dylan, what we get is a middle class, educated view of American folk music, utilised, as Dylan did, to make political statements. Some of those political statements are very powerful, some of them are a little bit hackneyed. And for me, he's at his best when he's actually going to a much more personal view of the world. I respect and acknowledge that middle class outsider view of Americana that we see through this period. I acknowledge it. That's a little bit like the British middle class take on Robert Johnson and Leadbelly, but also trying to integrate that with a sort of elitist, educated view of English culture. You know, from the absurdity of Alice in Wonderland and all that, through the sort of medieval music, through to Vaughan Williams and all the sort of great progressive rock that we love here, I think is that negotiation. There's also this going on in America, and I don't find it that interesting. And I believe the American punk movement comes out of that, you know, the sort of Iggy Pops and the Patti Smiths comes out. There is a line, isn't there, that I don't like. Now, the chink in my armour, if I'm really objective, is my love of Crosby, Stills and Nash, which is a line that comes through rock and roll, Everly Brothers, Crosby, Stills and Nash. And that line, which then goes into British bands like Wishbone Ash and Yes, ELO, they all have that in them, but that Crosby, Stills and Nash album I absolutely love. And Guinevere is a sublime track. There's nothing on here. Well, maybe there is. Maybe if I gave A Man Needs a Maid and Old Man more listens, they could become real favourites of mine. But the album with Neil Young on, I've always... is that Deja Vu. That's the big album, isn't it? That's the one that sold millions and millions of copies. And I'm aware that there is some very powerful songwriting on here. And I think the power of these sort of artists, the Americana exploring, you know, middle class, educated, slightly toffee-nosed thing that I detect here in these bands, I think the best of it produces nice songs. And that aspect that ends up with the Eagles and then maybe, dare I say, Bread, or maybe even more, the Carpenters, that sort of middle road aspect of American popular music, I like. We can all like that. The pretentious end, there's a pretentiousness here, a pretentiousness that the music critics will accept as being a thing. They love it. They will try and pull it when the British do it, but they like it when the Americans do it. And British people fall for it, and they think that this is worthwhile. You know, that pretending that you are from the Deep South and wearing, you know, like a waistcoat and a bloody floppy hat, you know, maybe getting a face tattoo, playing a banjo, twanging along, right, you know, creating some idealised view of American music does not make it worthy. You know why? Because authenticity is misdirected and it is overvalued in popular music, rock music, or whatever you want to call it. Authenticity, right? The idea that you have to be true to yourself to make great art is a nonsense. If that was the case, then Queen and Kiss and Kate Bush wouldn't be any good. Well, Kiss aren't any good, so that's true in that case. But anyway, I wanted this to be 30 minutes long, a little bit shorter. I am going to be dealing with these classic albums. I enjoy it very much. And with Argus, it was boring. It was boring. I have actually here, just to finish off for those Argus fans, an analysis of the sort of what many people think is the greatest track on Argus, The King Will Come. So what I'm going to do is finish up with my analysis of that, which I should have really done on the Argus video. So, you know, the Argus fans won't get this because they probably won't click on this one. All right, so King Will Come starts off with this sort of reggae rhythm guitar part with this sort of military drumming. It's quite interesting. I like it. So, well, this is interesting. It carries on like that. It's quite nice, but it then just goes on and on and on. And it's as though this band has an idea, but because they're existing in 1972, they've got to extend that idea out beyond its sell-by date, right? It then drops into a riff section. Now, is this a great riff? It doesn't sound like it to me. It's too close to being a hackneyed chord progression. It hasn't got the sort of block power chord power of Deep Purple. It hasn't got that sort of doomy unison-ness of Sunshine of Your Love or Black Sabbath. And it doesn't have that sort of elitist abandon and sort of a Jimmy Page riff, you know, where you feel that he is sort of dealing with quite magical riffiness. I can't explain it any better than that. Gong were another band that would create those types of riffs, which are sort of quite, ooh, we're off into another realm. It's none of those things. I don't think it's a great riff. Now, this is subjective, but for me, I'm not hearing Smoke on the Water at this point. We go into some nice harmony vocals, back and forth. It's all okay. This is the song that people are talking about. It's all a bit hackneyed, it's all a bit tedious, I've heard it all before, but this is okay, it's well done. Right, then we get a guitar solo over the riff. It goes into this guitar solo, and it's, for me, is not technically great, does not have the sort of blues expression of someone like Peter Green. It does not have these sort of orchestrating aspects of a Jimmy Page guitar solo. It's just a lot of flappy pentatonic soloing. I'm not against pentatonic soloing, but this just does not have anything in it for me, which I would say this is great. And there's so much of it. You know, if you're like Noel Gallagher and you can't do a reasonable guitar solo, well, keep it short, which is what Noel does. But this guy, he doesn't. He just goes on. And so it's the long-windedness of everything that is doing my head in. And this structure of sort of riff, verse, chorus, guitar solo goes on over and over and over, right? Eventually, after a long time of having to put up with this, it drops to a guitar figure based upon the riff. We get these lumped drum fills around these toms. Then we're back in again. This is a track that's going on for 6-7 minutes, but has only got enough material for 2.5 minutes. Right, we get another verse, right? This is the stretching of mediocre material beyond its length. It's like that bloody thing in Lord of the Rings when Bilbo Baggins says to Frodo that he feels like butter that's been spread over too much bread. That's what this is. There's not enough butter and too much bread, right? It keeps on going. I think, yeah, but they're going to get to some sort of crescendo. Do they? No, by the 6th verse, the tempo starts to drop. This is the 70s. No click track. They themselves are starting to get tired with it, you know, and then suddenly we have the riff and it's done. Bloody rubbish. So that's why I didn't like Argus. If you appreciate these sort of more specific critiques of classic albums, put it in the comments and give me some suggestions of classic albums which I haven't dealt with that I could. Because if you do that and I start doing this, I haven't got to sit there dreaming up any more bloody ideas for this channel. You know, I could just go and listen to anything and give you my opinion. Because for some reason, you lot think, even those people who hate me, seem to value my opinion. You got to understand, just because I think it's bad, it makes no difference. I know I'm really knowledgeable and I'm articulate and able to analyse things probably better than you. So in a way, my opinion is actually more important than you. That's probably the case. I know you don't like it, but it is the case. You know, I have good taste in music, and there's no denying that. But you know, in your sort of postmodern world where that can't exist, you know, why are you worried about what I think? It's just some bloke with an opinion. You know, get on with your day. Don't fret about it. Don't fret about it. You're probably right and I'm probably wrong. Yeah, it's not the case.